be a presentation that I've given to numerous organizations throughout the country called Earning the Right to Lead, and share some stories of my life with you that hopefully are somewhat captivating to you, that you can maybe get some ideas to advance your careers on. But the landscape of tourism in Mobile, we're really a city of about, inclusive of the county, 240,000 people, a lot smaller than what your population is, 1.6 million that I Googled. We welcome about 3.3 million visitors a year. We spend over $1.2 billion in our city. We employ about 18,000 travel-related jobs. So we're a pretty big component of our economy here. And we have a very diverse economy, which is really good in times like this when travel and tourism is down, you know, pretty much 50 to 60% throughout North America and Mobile. Evelyn, are you doing the slides? Are you able to pull those through?
Would you like me to start off with that video, or do you want me to go ahead with the slides?
Sure, yeah, go ahead and start with the video. That would be great if we have it. Give you a little slice of 2 minutes. Thank you.
Just give me a second here.
Sure.
It always does this to me when I switch over.
And y'all's HTM program, y'all have about 100 students, is that right?
Yes.
And you know, South Alabama has about 100 students in their HTM class. The size sort of matches.
We have around 100 students in the hospitality program. We have around 150 in gastronomy program.
Excellent.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Hi, I'm Caitlin, and today I'm going to show you around my hometown and why we believe that you should bring all of your meetings to Mobile, Alabama. This is Mobile's Waterfront Convention Center, a beautiful facility sitting right on the port of Mobile. The port gives your attendees a chance to experience incredible views while attending your meeting. Inside the center, there is 300,000 square feet of meeting space and over 100,000 square feet of exhibit hall. Our convention center and hotel partners have their own safety measures on top of what's already in place in the city. It's our promise that you'll be able to meet with us and enjoy Mobile with confidence. Across the street from the Mobile Convention Center is the Renaissance Riverview Plaza Hotel. This hotel and the convention center are connected by a covered skywalk, making your meeting commute less than 5 minutes. The Riverview Plaza has 39,000 square feet of meeting space for you to use. Marriott International named the hotel Hotel of the Year this year. Fun fact, it's the second tallest building in Mobile. This hotel is just one of several hotels that offer 1,400 rooms within walking distance of the convention center. However, Mobile has over 6,000 rooms that we can sell citywide. With a variety of diverse accommodations, we know your attendees will be pleased with staying with us in Mobile. One block later, here we are at the historic Battle House Hotel and Spa. The Battle House Hotel has over 28,000 square feet of meeting space, including this stunning crystal ballroom that we promise will leave your guests feeling like royalty. And if you have time in between your meetings, make sure you come indulge in the fabulous spot. And don't forget to check out the amazing rooftop pool. Dolphin Street is full of life, with shops, boutiques, historic concert venues, and lots of fabulous restaurants for you to choose from. Speaking of food, I put what we're cooking up against any city. I'm talking about innovative, delicious dishes from James Beard-nominated chefs and restaurants. Even top chef contestants are coming to Mobile to open their restaurants, just like this one, Hummingbird Way. We know after a long day of meetings, a good meal is exactly what you need. And I can promise you one thing, you will not go hungry here in Mobile, Alabama. I'm in Cathedral Square, and right behind me is a 300-year-old cathedral that when you take a step inside, you'll take a trip right to Europe. And this cathedral is nestled right in the middle of downtown Mobile. As you can tell, I'm standing on a Mardi Gras float. Did you know that Mobile, Alabama is the original home of Mardi Gras in America? Yes, you heard it right, Mobile, Alabama. This fabulous Mardi Gras float lives in the Carnival Museum, which is not only a museum, but also a venue. This is a great place to have off-site events such as breakfast, lunch, receptions, and even street parties. So when you're in town, make sure you check this place out. And now we are here at Cooper Riverside Park, located in between the Mobile Convention Center and Gulf West National Maritime Museum. This park, located on the port of Mobile, is a beautiful spot, especially for breaks in between meetings. Docked at the Mobile Convention Center is the Perdido Queen, a paddle wheel boat that offers beautiful sunset dinner cruises and themed cruises that your guests are sure to enjoy. Behind me is Wild Native Tours, and these guys know how to give a great eco tour. You'll learn all about Port of Mobile and a lesson in the second largest river delta in the country. Named by Golf Digest as one of the top 10 golf value destinations in America, Mobile is home to stunningly beautiful championship quality courses, including Magnolia Grove, which is one of 11 courses along the famous Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail. I'm aboard the USS Alabama, and sadly, this is where I leave you. There's so much more of Mobile that we'd like to share with you. So we can't wait for you to come and experience our charming and historic city for yourself. Give Visit Mobile a call to set up your site visit, experience our city, and learn more about the incentives that may be great for you. We are born to celebrate, and our Southern hospitality is here waiting for you.
There you go. So that's Caitlin. She's one of our 6 sales managers that sells conventions and meetings, primarily to North America, but really all over the world. She's amazing. She's about 25 years old and a superstar for our organization. Very passionate about what she does, and she grew up in Mobile, Alabama. Visit Mobile, we do a lot of things in an organization. We have conventions and we have leisure. And I'm going to get to all of that in a second. But I told you that we had about 3.3 million visitors every year that spend about $1.2 billion. And we have about almost 19,000 travel-related jobs. Interestingly enough, that's just in Mobile County. If you look right across the bay, on the other side of the bay, we have the Eastern Shore. And between the Eastern Shore and us, we have about 40% of the state's total tourism, 40%. In other words, about $16 billion worth of spend, that's with the B, in Alabama for tourism. So it's a really big thing. As you know, the whole world's changed with the coronavirus. I know that y'all have been affected, everyone's been affected. If you look at this next slide and you look at the economics of COVID.
Next slide.
There you go, yeah. We've had this was back in about May, Oxford Economics. So, we use them. travel, the travel industry, Roger Dow, US Travel, and so Destinations International use them. They're a really great company, and I had them do a study, not only for, they did one for North America, but they did one for Mobile Centric. As you can see there, the COVID 12% decline in GDP. If you look at the Great Depression in 1929 of 26%, and then the World War II in 1946 decline, you can see it's the third time, third largest increase in GDP in North America. So it's a significant event. If you look at the predicted gradual recovery on the next slide, it's interesting. It's actually sort of frightening. This graph sort of depicts some different kind of virus drags, if you will, a moderate or even a hangover in the drag of the virus. So in essence, the prediction here is that the U.S. economy and travel and tourism will rebound in the year basically 2024 as it was in 2019. So in other words, for those of you that have worked in hotels before and whatever, they're predicting that your ADR, your RevPAR, your occupancy will rebound in about 3 to 4 years from now and have the same metrics or revenue that you did in 2019. And that's very concerning, especially to people like me that lead and support destinations. We try to get people back to work. So, you know, immediately we go back to work saying, how can we change this kind of prediction? Of course, it's a forecast, it's a prediction. If you go to the next slide, you sort of see that the analogies of the previous recessions, it took 7 quarters for demand to recover and 12 quarters for average daily rates to recover. If you go to the next slide, the forecast here is that the good thing is that travelers are really traveler sentiment has rebounded. So there's hope here. We're coming out of the recovery. For example, this graph doesn't depict it, but the city of Mobile and pretty much North America wide in April, we were at about 12 to 15% occupancy. That's right, when this thing hit. That's frightening. Today, North America is right about 50% in occupancy. So there's been a nice increase. If you go to the next slide, so travelers are, you know, getting, they're more susceptible and more willing to travel now. If you look at the North America metrics, 19 million more US bound or outbound trips than inbound. So, you know, that presents an opportunity. In other words, those 19 million people are traveling internationally. So they'll be taking more regional and day trips in North America. So there is a little bit of hope for domestic opportunity on the next slide as that depicts. So, excuse me, on that slide. So if you go to some possible scenarios of the coronavirus and what I had Oxford Economics do for us, for our lodging folks, is say, you know, they have an upside and a moderate and a greater overhang kind of scenario. And if you can see on the slide, it depicts that the upside that we'd only have combined between GDP and occupancy, about a 19%, you know, decline this year. If we had a moderate overhang, we'd have about a 38% decline. If we had a greater overhang, we'd have about a 50% decline in revenue this year. So where are we pacing? This was done about 5 months ago. We're actually pacing at about 30% decline. So we're actually doing a little bit better than the moderate overhang kind of scenario depicted. So that's good news. So it's not all gloom and doom. If we go to the next slide, you know, we had some of those possible scenarios that I talked about. So I think it's important to know that Longwood's International, it's another data-heavy, data-centric thing in North America, came out today and said that good news is that there's about 50% of the U.S. population is now willing to travel for the holidays. So that's awesome. So we're thinking that there'll continue to be somewhat of an uptick in travel and tourism. So it is rebounding. I thought I would go into what is cultural tourism and how we defined it. You know, Mobile's cultural heritage, we have the history, we have the 7 flags of Alabama, which are the Spanish, the French, the British, the USA, the Alabama Republic, the Confederate States, and the Alabama state flag. So we have a lot of history dating back to actually 1702. And Mobile is the oldest city in the state of Alabama. We have a very vibrant culinary scene here. If you walk outside of my office of that convention center that you saw, you have about 60 restaurants that you can walk to on just one street alone. And that's a big sell for us. We have Mardi Gras, and we have the African-American heritage in the Clotilla that I'll talk about later. You can go to the next slide, Evelyn. And again, founded by, to my point, in 1702 by d'Iberville and Jean Baptiste Lemoyne, Bienville in 1702. So one thing that I didn't mention is the Battle of Mobile Bay, Damn the Torpedoes by Admiral Farragut that he's famous for. And I'll get to that in a minute. Old Fort Condé, that this old fort right over here by the convention center, protected Mobile from being invaded at that point. So we'll go to the next slide, Evelyn. To those points, our historical sites right around the convention center are these 3. History Museum of Mobile, which is right across the street from us, and the Mobile Carnival Museum, which is the Mardi Gras, and the historic Fort Condé. You know, as I alluded to, you probably heard that New Orleans is really big in Mardi Gras, and they are. We sort of have some fun banter back and forth. New Orleans is about a 2-hour drive from here. We had the first parade of Mardi Gras dating back to about 1703. And Joe Kane is the father of Mardi Gras. We basically have 3 weeks of Mardi Gras that usually happens most of the time they're in February. And it's a really big deal. It's really, for our Mobilians, it's a thing that happens all the way throughout the year. So when you have these parades, you have these balls, you have these parties, we have millions of people on the street watching parades and throws of moon pies and beads and all those kind of things. And we have the kings and queens of the different Mardi Gras societies, and of course those floats, and that develops all the way throughout the year in doing and planning for these things. So it is a big economic impact and a whole lot of fun, not only for our residents, from our visitors, and something that we sell. I was talking about cuisine here as of late. That's actually the chef at Southern National, Dwayne there, actually lived right by that restaurant, one of my favorite restaurants. But James Beard finalist, he and old Reggie, they do a really great job at Southern National. But, you know, I think that our food rivals anybody in the world, from seafood to pizza to pasta to whatever, we have it here. So we sell it, we use it to our advantage, and our tourism folks love our authentic culinary scene. We actually, those 60 restaurants just within those few blocks, there's only 6 national chains. 54 of them are purely owned and operated, which is a really cool thing. We'll go to the next slide, Evelyn. Our heritage tourism is a really, really big thing. And as you know, throughout the world now with the civil unrest, you know, it's been a big part of our past and often not a very pleasant part of our past with the Civil War, with civil rights and those kind of things. And one thing I do want to note that we're talking about civil rights, if you go to the Civil Rights Trail in Alabama, Lee Santill, our wonderful Department of Tourism, our executive director, he really started the Civil Rights Trail 15 years ago. And these go from anywhere from Selma to Birmingham, to Tuskegee, to now Mobile. But he also was the impotence and the catalyst for the National Civil Rights Trail. And he spent the last 15 years collaborating and developing that. I want to talk about that in a sec for right now. The Dora Franklin Finley African American Heritage Trail here in Mobile is about 42 sites that you can see of that with the African Americans of what they did from pharmaceutical, for being a doctor, from being business people, for healthcare, for retail. That's what that footprint is about. And they do a fantastic job on telling about the African American influence on Mobile, Alabama, and our country. The recent discovery of the Clotilda, and I printed something out, and I want to talk about that now. And I want to read you the story of the Clotilda, how I wrote it up to apply for a grant. And we only had about 3 paragraphs that we could write for this grant. You're going to, if you haven't heard of the Clotilda, it was the last slave ship to enter North America back in 1860. And it was recently discovered actually up the river about 5 miles from the convention center where my office is today. We think that in due time, once the assets are fully built, that story in itself will bring in 1 million visitors a year just to see the Clotilda and to learn and share about the story. It's going to be on 60 Minutes. Anderson Cooper came in and did an interview a few months ago on October 25 or the next Sunday, whatever that date is. And I highly encourage you to watch that. If you get 60 Minutes over there, I'm sure you do. But I want to read just a little bit about that if I could. But because I think everything else that's going on in the world, it's not a part of it's not a pretty part of our past, but I think it needs to be talked about. I wanted to just read something that we wrote for a grant. For over 160 years, the waters of Mobile River have held a story from a dark period in American history when an estimated 2 million Africans were forcibly brought to our shores as slaves. The Clotilda, a 2-mast schooner designed to carry cargo, arrived in Mobile Bay on July 8th of 1860, carrying 110 human beings who had somehow survived the horrific cramped quarters and 6-week journey from West Africa. Though the importation of slaves had been abolished in 1808, the illegal smuggling of slaves proved lucrative. The Clotilda would be the last documented ship known to bring humans into bondage on American soil. Soon after the ship's arrival, it was burned to destroy evidence of its existence and complicity in a forbidden trade. In May of 2019, the waters of the Mobile River could no longer contain this secret, and the wreckage of the Clotilda was finally uncovered and confirmed, shining a spotlight on this difficult time in American history, and also on the seemingly forgotten community of Africatown, which is 5 miles north of Mobile. This discovery represents a unique and one-of-a-kind of opportunity to examine and bring to life a troubling chapter in our shared story that needs to be discussed. It also represents a chance to share the remarkable story of the resilient Africatown community, the only community in our nation founded and rules by African-born slaves. Africatown is where Clotilda captives created a new life, carrying on, in part, the languages and traditions of their native land. Today, their descendants still call this community home, but for many of them, economic equity and opportunity has been a struggle. The Clotilda and Africatown stories is one of international significance, and if developed and marketed with accuracy, care, and sensitivity, can one day become one of the nation's top historic destinations. So that's something, a piece that our organizations are working on very diligently, to create a phase 1 water tour to the discovered site of the Clotilda. It's going to be a very cool thing that we hope to launch in January. From that video that you saw right behind our convention center, in February, do a national kind of public relations effort behind that. So, and share the story with the total intent to really restore Africatown, to help with its sustainability and to help a community that has really struggled for years. So look out for that one. Google Clotilda. Heritage tourism throughout the world is the largest tourism segment that is growing in the country. If you go to the next slide, we really are a melting pot of different experiences. From the left of Bellingrath Gardens, 40 acres of beautiful flowers and vegetation and trees and horticultural, to America's Amazon, that airboat over there. We have 5 rivers that empty into Mobile Bay, which empties into the Gulf of Mexico. And those rivers flow as far north as actually Michigan. So from the Tennessee Tom Bigby all the way down here, it's really cool to have a waterfront in the downtown. And we're looking to expand that footprint in our tourism. We have the historical part with lots of historical homes, and so on and so forth. You saw Mardi Gras, and we have a very live music scene as well, which, you know, the music thing and the big crowds aren't a real popular thing right now with COVID, but it will come back. So, you know, if you look at the future of tourism, before y'all got on, we were talking about the Tourism Improvement District. This is something innovative that's taken us several years to accomplish. We are the first city in the state of Alabama to form a tourism improvement district. It was a legislative act by law. In essence, it's an innovative marketing program that we collaborated with our lodging partners. And basically, this is maybe what you can do. I don't know. But what's going to happen with our TID, Tourism Improvement District, is that our hotel guest will pay a $1 assessment, $1 fee on their folio. And our lodgers will collect it. We will pool it among our 64 lodging establishments that are participating. That will bring in at least $1.5 million a year for marketing our destination, of which our organization will collaborate and do it for free. We'll market that program for them, and we can divide that up into different marketing programs, whether it be digital, OTAs, it can be anything from magazine, print, to inviting influencers in here, so on and so forth. But if you think about it, $1 million, $1.5 million a year over the 5-year program, that's a significant amount of money just in our little city to promote our destination. So we're really, really excited about that. Again, one of 700 TIDs in North, or one of 170. So it's something that I don't know how your laws are set up, or maybe a collaboration among your lodging folks. It's not a tax, because here's the difference. A tax is imposed by the government, collected by the government, and spent by the government how they want to. An assessment in this kind of thing is actually imposed by the corporation, which we form a corporation with our lodging colleagues, and then collected and spent how the lodging folks want it to be spent. The city, the government can't collect it at all. That's something you'll have to look into your law if you could do or you can't. But we found this to be a good way to really promote our industry in travel and tourism. I talked a little bit about the Clotilda heritage tourism piece, again, being really, I think, our biggest box for our future in terms of one market segment that will really grow. And then the other thing that we do here at Visit Mobile is cruising from Mobile. We used to have the Carnival Fantasy Ship. When COVID hit, the whole cruising world came to a halt. It's still to a halt, other than in Asia right now. You basically have 2 ships from TUI, two from Norwegian, and 2 from MSC that are selling with relative success, so that's a good thing. We do know that the CDC and CLIA, the Cruise Line Industry Association, have principally agreed to protocols that are safe. So we're thinking that cruising in North America will come back in December this year, primarily probably from Miami. And we have been told by Carnival that we're going to have the Carnival Sensation selling from Mobile when cruising resumes. So I'm thinking maybe the spring of next year, we're going to have our cruise ship coming in and the home porting from Mobile. Why is that important? Well, we have about 200,000 cruisers that embark and debark that stay in about 30,000 hotel rooms a year. So all of this stuff, the convention meetings, the leisure piece, add compression to the whole market and make it a very rich economic environment for a city. So again, that balanced approach of tourism, it's leisure and it's conventions that really help really not only Mobile, but most of North America, succeed. And travel and tourism makes up about 15% of the economy in North America. That's a pretty big deal, and at 15%. That next slide, Evelyn, I think I just went over, but you talk about innovation. A lot of times, it's better to control your own destination. In a city or a government, they only have a certain amount of resources that they can commit to certain segments. So that's why we formed our own tourism improvement district, our lodging entity or corporation, so they can become more in control of their own destiny. So I thought before we went on to talk about earning the right to lead, and some stories that I wanted to share in my life that might help you, might open up some questions about tourism or any kind of things that maybe I can learn from you.
Just a quick comment, David. I'm hopeful that if we can make the inbound for the USFQ students to visit us, that they might actually come in time to do the Clotilda tours with us.
And we were talking about that. Evelyn and I were talking about how we can maybe collaborate and get you all over here next year, sometimes mid to late next year. And I'll be encouraging our lodging corporation to help be a resource to get you all over here, along with the University of South Alabama. I think it'd be a really cool experience to where, we could exchange best practices, ideas, and y'all's brains to help, both of our destinations win. Any questions on the tourism component before I go into a whole nother slide deck for you to talk about real life leadership?
Okay, do we have some questions here? Amy?
Hey, I just wanted to ask a little question, which is, I'm very interested in knowing if tourism in Mobile is based on domestic tourism or international tourism. Because I think it's a very interesting place and I would really like to visit it.
Did you say safe? Domestic and international, or did you want to know the market kind of mix?
I think she wanted to know whether we focus in on domestic versus international.
It's heavily domestic at this point. And the reason it is that our international flights are we don't have an international hub here yet. The 2 main international hubs are Atlanta and New Orleans, which Atlanta is only, and it's one of the largest airports in the world, is only 5 hours from us, 4.5 hours. And New Orleans is a very large airport that's 2 hours from us. So we are continuing to collaborate with those two cities, especially from the group tour operator standpoint, to try to increase our share of international visitors. And we're going to continue to be growing that. But principally, now we're moving our airport to downtown. Once we do that over the next 5 years in our master plan, we're going to have more of an international presence because we have a really good partnership with Toulouse, France, and Hamburg, Germany, with Airbus being here, having 1 of 3 plants here in manufacturing. So we feel like that will increase the competition of our carriers and give us a little more of an international presence potential, therefore to grow the international market.
Great. We have another question from
Great question.
Christian.
Hi, David. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, what I was wondering was, like, since New Orleans is like quite close from Mobile, I was wondering, like, the cuisine over in Mobile, in Alabama is quite the same like the Creole cuisine, or is it like quite based on original Mobile cuisine, saying like that?
I think I cut in and out. I had a little bit of a connection there, but you were comparing New Orleans to Mobile, and you were talking about the travel component of that.
No, he was wanting to know if the cuisine in New Orleans is similar to Mobile, or are there differences?
They are very, very similar. They are seafood focused. I would say New Orleans is a little more French focused.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was like the Creole cuisine that they have in New Orleans or not.
We're a little less Creole. And
okay.
A little more seafood centric.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I was wondering that since you were given the Mardi Gras details, saying like that. Okay, thanks, David.
Thank you.
Oh, great. I don't think we have any other question. I don't see on the chat.
Well, great. Thank you for your questions and your interest. I want to talk about the spirit to serve others and really earning the right to lead. You know, and I think a distinguished thing I want to talk to you about is, what does earning the right to lead mean? This is not going to be a PowerPoint presentation. I hope you feel like this is authentic, because, you know, I just want to share some stories. And to me, earning the right to lead is knowing what a day in the life of your team is. And once they know that you know what a day in their life is, that's when they work for blood, sweat, and tears. That is the distinction between, you know, what sustains companies. I will use Marriott or PepsiCo or Starbucks as examples of companies that continue to survive for decades and beat the competition because they live their values, and they're engaged and they're humble servant leaders. So let me get to the core of earning the right to lead. And part of earning the right to lead, a big part of it, is living your values. And this is actually an oil rig. It's actually about 60 miles due south of Mobile Bay. And it so happens to be one of the greatest spots to fish in the Gulf of Mexico for tuna, for blue marlin, for big game fish, wahoo, and the like. And I think that I've actually fished at this rig. If you take one of these Hatteras out, and you have a couple of captains that I know that have those boats, and I sort of look at values of being in an organization, your compass, or if you will, if you want to take it furthermore, your 10 commandments. But let me give you a principal story of this. If you're on this boat like I've been out and you leave at midnight, the tuna bite usually starts at about 5 o'clock in the morning, the blue marlin, they start feeding right around daybreak. And it takes you about 5 hours to get there, cruising at 15 knots. I want to ask a question though. If your compass is off 1 degree in each of those 70 miles, any guesses of how far you missed this oil rig to get out there and fish? If your compass is off 1 degree in each of those 70 miles, how far do you miss this rig? How far are you from that rig? Anyone want to venture to guess? I know y'all aren't all that quiet. 7 miles. And why is that significant? 7 miles is a long way to miss your destination in a little fishing boat, especially if it's, you know, the waves are big, it takes you a while, you're going to waste some more gas. You're not going to get there on time for the prime time. It's going to take you another 2 hours to get there. And here's my point.
David, actually, today in the morning I was watching a video about geodesics and about how Earth it has its curvature and is not quite like straightforward. Like if you walk in a straight line or if you travel in a straight line and you just start like walking in a straight line, you're always going to have a small curvature towards the top, saying like that, if you go from North Pole to the South Pole. And it's quite interesting. If you just miss 1 degree, yeah, you're going to miss that spot to fish, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's
like
big
several
deal.
kilometers. So yeah.
Well, I want to expand that a minute, because as y'all are graduating and that kind of thing, I think there's an important distinction there is that, you know, our values, for example, our core values at Visit Mobile are accountability, communication, teamwork, service, integrity, and community. I would challenge you, if you're interviewing for your first job, ask your boss, what are the values of your company? Because here's my point. Some companies, other than others, or rather than others, they live their values. They're the core of what they work for as a team every day to achieve. And here's my bigger point. Those companies, like I just mentioned, Marriott, PepsiCo, Starbucks, there's a lot of accountability behind those values. And generally speaking, if you live your values, or let's say you don't live your values, if you don't live your values, those are the companies that wake up 2 or 3 years from now, your CEOs, your management teams, all of a sudden they're going to say, why are our sales down? Why are our profits down? Why is their guest satisfaction declining so much? What is happening? I can just bet you that there are some accountability issues in their leadership and living their values. Our values, those 6 main values, are on everyone's reviews every year. How are we doing with our accountability? How are we doing with our communication? And they're very well defined. My point is that if they basically keep you on track, just like the 10 commandments, if you will. I mean, generally speaking, if you live your 10 commandments, they're sort of guiding kind of principles to keep you on track that, you know, less probably is going to happen bad in your life if you follow them. It's the same thing with your values in an organization. Some companies just, they form their values, they stick them up on a poster, pretty poster, and they put them in their cafeteria and whatever. That doesn't work. And so I really challenge you to pay attention to living your values in your company or even in your personal life as you morph through life, because that is a big part about earning the right to lead. And I want to tell you a story about, you know, I've had the pleasure of meeting Bill Marriott on several occasions. And I want to tell you about a property visit with Bill Marriott. When I was with Marriott Corporation, you know, I first met him in 1988, and I started my career out of college loading golf bags. Actually, I was a golf pro, and I thought I was a pretty good college player. I thought, well, I'd go work, whatever. Maybe I can work my way up on the tour one day. And after a couple of years, I found out I was good, but I wasn't that good. I wanted Tiger Woods. So I began the business part and the people part of this deal. And I first loaded Mr. Marriott's golf bag in 1998 at the golf club before I became general manager many years later. And, you know, he said to me, David, seems like a pretty happy place here. You know, I just want you to continue to take great care of your associates so they'll take great care of the guests and the guests take care of the rest. And I thought, well, that's pretty simple. It seems like. He said, but just keep doing what you're doing. I like the culture and the feel here. And I asked Mr. Merritt, I said, you know, he said, hey, by the way, David, you know, I don't want to take any customers tea time. I'm going to go down with one tea. It's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I want to make sure I'm not interfering with anybody. You know, I thought that was sort of humble for him. He didn't want to take the full paying customers kind of right to the tea. Well, you know, Bill Marriott, when he comes to a property, he'll go to the general manager's office and he'll say to him and her, let's just walk around for the next few hours. I want to meet everyone on your team. So you go around and you'd introduce Bill Marriott to a housekeeper, a dishwasher, a groundsman, an engineer, a waiter, a salesperson, so on and so forth. And we had about 700 people that worked at this resort. You know what he was doing? He was looking at how engaged that general manager was with their associates. If the general manager had to look at the name tag to introduce the associates to Bill Marriott, do you know what he would do? Well, first of all, he might fire you, because you know why? He thought you should know everyone by name. And if you didn't, you were spending way too much time in your office. You couldn't possibly know what was going on in your hotel. You couldn't possibly know what the guests were thinking or experiencing if you didn't know what your associates were doing. So earning the right to lead is knowing what a day in the life of your team is. You know, it's those soft questions, those soft things that you can ask your dishwashers or your grounds people or your housekeepers of, you know, how's your day going? You got everything you need? Your family okay? It's imperative as a leader that you not only ask those questions, that you mean it. Because at a certain time, when they know that you mean it and you truly know that they know that you really care about their lives, that's the moment where you're going to find out your best opportunities are, whether your dishwashers are broken, what your productivity is, if they're being supported correctly and led correctly, if they're happy at work and those kind of things. You've got to have that kind of leadership. If you have that kind of leadership and skills, you can run any organization in the world. It's a little more time that it takes. A lot of times your office work will get left behind. And sure, there'll be a little more stress on you, but it's your people work that will drive this success. It's the soft stuff that drives the hard results. It doesn't make you weak as a leader. It makes you stronger to support people and ask those caring questions. You know, I want to fast forward 20 years later in San Francisco. I was visiting at the International General Managers Conference for Marriott Corporation. Bill Marriott's on stage, and he says that, y'all, we're in the best times of our history. I just need you to do one thing. I need you to take great care of your associates so they'll take care of your customers and your guests, and they'll take care of the rest. The same thing. He never changed his core expectation of leaders. You got to take really great care of your people. The rest of it will take care of itself. He so happened to introduce two people that ran giant corporations that he felt shared the same values that he valued for Marriott Corporation. It so happened to be David Novak with PepsiCo, who had 2 million people under his leadership, and Starbucks, Howard Schultz. And it was a pretty cool discussion that evolved on stage about what those two felt like their importance was to lead. And Novak with PepsiCo was real short and sweet. And he said what he didn't like, or let's say what he liked. He liked humility. He liked servant leaders. What he didn't like was arrogant leaders. arrogant leaders were people that he fired immediately when he went to visit storefronts. You know, of course, arrogance is the great destroyer. When you're arrogant, you can't listen. You don't listen to your team. Your team is the one that has the best ideas. They are in the trenches. They are with the customers. The customers know when your associates, your housekeepers aren't there. They don't know when the GM's on vacation. They know it when the housekeepers aren't there or on vacation, right? So, you know, Novak was a big deal about humility and servant leadership, just like Bill Merritt is today. The other one was Howard Schultz, and he actually shared a story with Starbucks that was very interesting to me and made a big impact. His core value was, of course, taking great care of his people, but vulnerability as a leader. It's okay not to know everything. It's okay. It's okay to ask your associates for help. That doesn't make you weak. I don't have all the answers. It's the frontline people who have the answers. And he shared a story that I want to share with you today, that for 13 consecutive years, Starbucks had double-digit earnings growth. 13 years. And all of a sudden, Houston, we have a problem. They oversaturated the market to their franchisees. And the sales started declining. They had unhappy owners. And so the board asked them what they should do. And Howard Schultz had left for 6 months. And they got him on a call, and they decided to have a board meeting. And Howard Schultz said, well, here's what I think we should do. We need to get every manager internationally to come together in New Orleans, Louisiana. And we need to have a 3-day meeting. And the board said, that's going to cost us about $3 million. We can't afford to do that. And he said, we can't afford not to do that. We need to bring everyone in, and we need to have some hard truth, hard conversations. So they met, and he was on stage at the big splash introductory session and keynote session. He said, and he broke down, he actually cried. He said, you know, y'all, this is going to be a painful 3 days. Some of us may not be here a month later. Some of us will be. But I need your ideas. We need some hard truths and discussions of how we can pivot and turn the ship. Because if we don't, none of us are going to be here. Howard Schultz today says that this is one of the reasons why Starbucks continues to thrive. For those hard times, the leader has to ask for help. He's got to have enough support and trust in his team to continue to carry the torch. The leader possibly can't do it all. Loving your Buckies. You know, living your values and loving your Buckies. Bucky Miller so happened to be at the Grand Hotel Marriott that I was in Point Clear for many years. Bucky served there for 63 years. 63 consecutive years. You know, his motto was simplicity, sincerity, service. He had a photographic memory. You know, Christian, he would know your name if you came back year after year after year. He would know he would remember your name, honest to God. You know, he was 63 years there. He won the J.W. Marriott Award of Excellence. 1 out of 300,000 people is awarded that every year. And now I think it's 12. 7 states passed resolutions honoring him in the hospitality industry. Bucky loved people. And, you know, the guest would book because of Bucky. Bucky died in 2002. Full-size statue went up by his bar. He was a bartender. He later was a server, and then he was a hospitality ambassador in the lobby. And they literally would book at the rooms nearest to where he would serve coffee because they wanted to engage with him starting at about 6 o'clock in the morning when he got there to work. The Alabama funeral directors and groups, they booked really because of him and the impact that they made. He was actually their keynote speaker when the groups got there in these conventions. So, you know, Bucky lives now today at the Grand in other ways, Bucky's golf package, Bucky's birdcage, the bar. They've got a Bucky's book of history and Bucky's 12 commandments here on the next slide, or something you might want to take a picture of. You know, I think that he was bigger in life. He had this loud, booming voice, but he truly loved people. And, you know, people get it when you're engaged to him. So he's a real positive guy, and he had a nickname for everybody. So, you know, I think it's important that you general managers to be, you CEOs to be that I'm talking to, never, ever forget that it's the people who do the work. You know, you may cast a vision, but you need them more to get accomplished what your vision is. So serve them, be a servant leader. You know, arrogance doesn't win. Titles don't win. Titles mean nothing. They don't. So love your Buckies. One last thing I want to cap on in terms of, next slide there, Evelyn, in terms of what's your condition and what's your position. One more. You know, and this is really, earning the right to lead is serving a purpose that's really greater than your own. You know, we get into this business probably not for the money initially. The money is great later down the road. But it's really because we authentically love to serve people. We love people. And COVID is really tough right now because our big meetings aren't here. And it's sort of a, you know, a place with not as much activity as we usually have. But I want to turn the slide to Pat Brown, who, until he died 2 years ago, was the world blind golf champion. So happened to be that I met him when I was a golf pro before I was a GM with Marriott. And saw him on the range hitting balls one day. I thought it was a little bit odd. There was a little coach by him kneeling down or whatever, and this guy was, he'd line the club up, and Pat would hit it. And he hit about 250, 260 every time, right down the middle. And as I went up closer, I noticed something was a little bit different, and I found out it was Pat Brown. At that time, his coach Jerry Bruce, and he was at that point the 18 years consecutive world blind golf champion. See, Pat, he grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. Was an All-American golfer, an All-American basketball player at Tulane. Graduated from law school, and in 1967, was driving back from a wedding. He was a passenger in a car, and a drunk driver hit him head on. Back then, in North America, they didn't have seat belts, and it threw him through the windshield. And 22 operations later, he survived, and he began to piece his life together, but he couldn't see. It actually, the glass severed his optic nerve. So he had what you call NLP, no light perception. Well, he went on to practice law. He's a trial lawyer. He had 3 girls. His wife divorced him 3 years later and moved 800 miles away. And you talk about adversity. You know, how would he really pick up the pieces of his life again and move on? Well, so he started playing golf and met Jerry Bruce, and he went on to become the blind golf champion. I was his coach later in life. But if you look at what happened here, the slide to the far left as you're looking at the screen is Pat with those sunglasses on, his son who he never saw, Patrick, holding the trophy. And then their family in the middle, his wife on the left, Sherry, who he never saw when he married later. And the person on the far right, when you're looking at the screen with the dog, that's Eli Manning. Anyone who's a New York Jets fan, Eli was his first golf lesson. Actually, Eli Manning took golf lessons from Pat. and it's one of his best friends, and Peyton Manning. Y'all know Peyton. Well, that dog over there, the golf tournament that he always raised from when we went to play in New York was the Guiding Eyes Classic. And that dog over there is, Pat raised tens of millions of dollars through his leadership to raise these dogs to match them with human beings with either mental or visual impaired capacity. And it costs about $30,000 to raise a dog, to have the ability to pair him with a human. So Pat, you know, went on, he changed so many people's lives because he never gave up. He had some really severe circumstances that hit him. He was actually 40 years as a bank chairman after being a lawyer, very successful in all ways. And I really contributed to his attitude and overcoming adversity that, you know, he always told me, he said, you know, David, I still do the same things I used to do. I just do them differently, right? So he actually was the godfather of my daughter. So earning the right to lead is really servant leadership. It's living your values, loving your buckies, and serving a purpose greater than your own. So wanted to give you some perspective of some people who have made an impact on my life. I would really challenge you, because I see old Carlos and Camilla over there maybe being your instructors, just like Evelyn. I mean, your instructors are special people. You know, they truly care about you. I would listen and engage with them, and really engage with them, because, you know, they care about you. But what I've found in my life is that you're going to have mentors and you're going to need them. And then it's your turn when you get to be my older age to give back. So we hope to really at some point, maybe next year, be able to share some stories together, maybe even eat some great seafood over here, and I can learn from you. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Really interesting. I have a lot of questions, but let's see if we have some questions from the students. Raise your hand, please.
Y'all are a quiet bunch.
Yeah, I don't know why.
They're not usually quiet.
No, usually not. Maybe they are. We just had a holiday. Maybe that's the reason.
No.
Okay, we have 1, 2 right now. So, Madeleine. Madeleine?
Yes, sorry, I think that my internet is kind of unstable. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. The question that I had is that I was wondering, where is the limit between like being close to your employees and in the same time being their supervisor?
Yeah, so I think I'm understanding your question to be, what's the balance of being close but yet being accountable, or being, you know, a supervisor?
Yeah, like you have to be still the leader, but you also want to be their friend. So to say that if they want to, if they see you as a friend, they could take some liberties with their jobs, kind of like what problems you could have to the company and what cons it could have.
Yeah, that's a great question, Madeline, and I love that question, because you're exactly right. And one thing that I can recall struggling in my life is when I was a supervisor and then going to a manager and then having those yearly reviews and things like that. It's awful easy to give the good news. It's hard to give the opportunities or the bad news. and you owe it to them to give them the ways that they can improve. If you don't, you're really not doing them a favor. So the difference is accountability with, you know, I wouldn't count it as a friendship. I call it as someone who supports and cares the associate. And if they really know authentically that you care, that's awesome. And if they view that as being a friend, that's awesome. But they also have a job to accomplish. And the accountability comes in the results. So people don't need to ever, leaders don't ever need to succumb to, getting results. And that's where accountability of leadership comes into. And that's why it's our #1 value at Visit Mobile, because we have to deliver results to our stakeholders. It's okay to care, but you have to have the results.
Very interesting. Do we have another question?
Well, it's not a question. I just want to say thank you. For me, this aspect of values is very important. And I think maybe you don't have to be unprofessional, but you must have empathy when you are a leader and also when you are an employer. And it's wonderful seeing someone who have been alive a career in this industry thinking like that. So thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Yeah, me too. I want to most of all congratulate you because I really love your presentation and it interests me very. I would love to visit Mobile, Alabama. Congratulations, I really loved your presentation. It was very clear.
Well, good. Well, I can't wait to welcome you all to Mobile. We can do some fun stuff together.
Anybody else? I think we can. We have a lot of students that want to go there. I think that will be very interesting. I hope we can do it very soon and visit you, visit the university, visit you, David, because I have, as I told you, I have so many questions, especially how do you get to have 3.3 million visitors in a city when we have 2.4 in a country? Well, okay, yeah, right. We are talking about international visitor, but still, I mean, you have to do something good to get those numbers. So I think that's really, really interesting. And part of that is the leadership and of course the values that you have and your company has. I think we had another question. I saw somebody to turn the mic on. Maria Jose.
Juanca, gracias. Oh, so David.
Hey, Marie.
Maria Jose, you have a problem with your microphone? Okay, now.
Juanca, perdón. Okay, so David, it was more of a, not so much of a question, but asking for advice. So I know that we've been clear that it's also about a lot of your personality when you're being a leader or where you're working with other people. So personally, I love like it really, I'm really passionate about it, but I really think that for me, there's like a limit. And in working several situations, I've seen that this like boundaries for me, like socializing and stuff, it's like taking a toll on my work, you know? So I was wondering if you have like any advice, like for when your heart's in the right place and everything is in the right place, but simply like you have boundaries that sometimes other people cross over, but it's like you don't want to ruin the work and the energy and stuff?
Great question. And all of us as leaders from time to time have a certain capacity. You know, our tank gets full, you know, we're people, so we love people, we like to engage, but there are limits. You know, there are definite limits. And when you're feeling where you need to recharge, you need to go recharge, and you need to set those boundaries accordingly. And for instance, I'll tell you one other thing that I'm always on the lookout for is that I'm fixing to go to, well, we had a convention with Connect conference in Las Vegas scheduled next week. It's now been moved to Orlando, Florida. There will be 5,000 attendees, social distanced and whatever. But what happens sometimes, and I have to share with you authentically, I've seen with colleagues or in my profession over the years, is that we get around this social thing, whether it be receptions or drinks after a meeting or those kind of things. I'd be very careful with those kind of things. I've got a limit, you know, I've got a rule for me that when I'm out socializing, I'm one drink and I'm done. You know, or if you do drink. So that's one example from a socializing standpoint. I would never drink with subordinates, or, you know, I'm very careful in those kind of situations. I think it's an alcohol policy and probably a no alcohol policy in a corporation in terms of what that is a good thing. It keeps people out of trouble. Whether you're drinking or driving or other things, but getting back to the basics of friendships with people or boundaries or limits, it's remember what you're trying to accomplish, and that is results. A former senior vice president with Marriott, I asked him one time, I said, Ed Lee, who now lives in Atlanta, he was one of the younger SVPs ever with Marriott 30 years ago. I said, what is the one big thing that's going to be important for me in my career in advance? And he says, well, David, notwithstanding just taking great care of your people, because that's a given, you got to do that. He says, the other thing is one word: results. I was thinking I'd get a 5 or 10 minute speech. He said, it's results. It's guest satisfaction, financial performance, associate satisfaction. Those are the 3 golden things of Marriott. So you can do whatever you want to do, but you got to recharge. You got to be accountable to results. You got to know your boundaries, and you got to, you know, do those things. So.
Thank you so much, David.
Sure.
Great. Thank you very much. I don't know if we have another question, but really appreciate you accepting this invitation to be here. Again, I would love to meet you in person and talk about this. I think there are a lot of things to talk, to learn. Being a leader is one of the most difficult things in the industry. So if you don't learn how to do that, you're just being a boss, not a leader. So that's completely different. Thank you so much. I hope we can meet soon. I hope you can come to Quito to visit us and to see what do we have here. We have a lot of cultural places to visit, attractions, and we have national parks around here. And of course, we have Galapagos, we have Guayaquil, we have some cities that you should come and visit them. So we are waiting for you. I hope soon.
Well, great. We hope to see you all soon. And thank you so much. It's an honor to be with y'all today, and look forward to seeing y'all hopefully next year. Thank you.
I think the topic of ecotourism, I think that would be a great exchange because they have great expertise in the area of ecotourism, and Mobile under David's leadership, that's one of the areas we're focusing on. So that might be a great area. The other thing that it looks like a lot of the students, thanks to David's great promotion job, we may actually, in addition to looking at bringing in a culinary inbound study abroad, maybe also add the tourism aspects for those who are interested in tourism. and just kind of have two groups, and maybe perhaps sometimes have the two groups join together, but otherwise focusing on culinary and tourism as two separate study groups.
Yeah, definitely. And we also have here Quito, the cultural heritage. I think that's also important. We were the first city to be one part of the UNESCO cultural heritage with, what was the other one? Krakow. That was the other city in 1978. So again, thank you very much, David. Thank you very much, Evelyn, for everything. And I hope we can go there soon with the students and visit you and see all the things you share with us.
Thank you all. Y'all be safe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
David.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Juan.
Evelyn, thank you. David, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, thank you, David.
Thank you
Bye.
for the presentation.
Have a good
Thank you.
Have a good day.